1,000. The death toll is 542. Recoveries is 7,613. Ghana, confirmed cases at 15,013, and 95 people have died. Recoveries there stands at 11,078. Algeria, the death toll is 869. The confirmed cases there is 12,248, and recoveries stands at 8,792 cases. And we finish with Tunisia, where confirmed cases is at 1,160. 50 people have died. Recoveries is at 1,023. So basically, I don't know if there's anybody sick there in Tunisia. Okay. I don't know, this math here does not tally, because if the total number of confirmed cases is at 1,160, the number of people who have died is 50, so that remains with 1,110, right? And the recoveries is 1,023. Maybe the person who did this research must have missed a digit there, but the recovery levels there in Tunisia has been very impressive, so it's not too far from that. So the total number of confirmed cases in the continent is at 335,415. Number of deaths in the continent is 8,845, and the recoveries is at 160,471, and the global cases have surpassed 9.5 million people so far, and the death toll globally is at 485,122, but I know that figure has changed, I think, since mid-morning when we prepared this, and the global recoveries is over 5 million cases. So there you go. That is just, in a nutshell, a few African countries and how we stand in regards to COVID-19 and the statistics today. I'm sure in the evening we shall be looking at totally different figures there, as we are being told a lot of African countries, we have not even arrived at our peak yet, so we're just climbing, so the curve continues to go up. So like in Kenya, the estimation that was being made and through the modeling the Ministry of Health has been making, they say that our peak will be in August and September. So the figures right now that you're seeing that are shocking Kenyans, are expected to go a bit high, and then after that we shall see a decline. So I'm just hoping it will not go too high that will overwhelm our already challenged health system in this country, but also in a lot of countries in Africa. There's a time we were looking at the healthcare system and facilities and infrastructure in this continent. It is really wanting, and so a lot need to be done, and our leadership, I believe, has taken this challenge that COVID-19 has placed, especially on our health system, the demand that the COVID-19 has placed on our health system, and the lack of preparedness and the lack of capacity for the health systems to meet this demand. I believe this is a challenge that a lot of governments have seen, and they're working towards improving the health infrastructure in the different African countries, and that will be good for us all, and maybe in the near future, because now they've realized it's not easy to take a plane and just fly into another country to get treatment during this time. So they have realized it is important for them to build a proper hospitals in their countries and to equip these hospitals appropriately and to have enough staff and people who are qualified, specialists and all that. So I am hoping after this COVID-19 is done and gone, because I'm looking forward to that day, that our leadership in this country will start thinking critically on how to improve the health sector here so that it is better for them too, so that they don't have to be catching a flight every time they're seeking a medical treatment for even cases that should be taken care of here at home and in the different African countries. So I'm just looking for that time. So thank you so much. So now let's just turn our attention into other African news, and we start with South Africa, where some teachers and parents in South Africa's Western Cape province are demonstrating and demanding the closure of schools over the spread of coronavirus. A few principals have written an open letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa urging him to rethink the decision to open schools. They say that virus cases within the community are now affecting pupils and teachers. According to the Western Cape Education Department, over 300 staff members and 61 pupils had tested positive for coronavirus. Some teachers refused to report back to work after colleagues tested positive for the virus. Yes, there in South Africa. And we come back to Somalia, and Somalia's national army is incapable of driving out militant group Al-Shabaab from its strongholds. That is according to the U.S. Department. Now, the country is still heavily dependent on foreign support in almost all major security functions throughout the country. The State Department said in its country reports on terrorism 2019, the annual report detailing the work of the international terrorist groups was released on Wednesday. It says that Al-Shabaab funds its activities through illegal charcoal production and exports, taxation of local populations and businesses, and by means of remittances and other money transfers from the Somali in diaspora. And we move to Ghana, where Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister has said the country will reconstruct a building demolished inside the Nigerian High Commission compound in Accra. Armed men reportedly stormed the compound last week and destroyed buildings under construction. 2 people have been arrested over the incident. A businessman who had previously claimed that he owned the land where the building was being put up had led the demolition operation, according to an article posted in the Nigerian High Commission website in Ghana. And we go to Malawi, where Malawi's Electoral Commission is now warning against the release of unofficial results following Tuesday's presidential election rerun. Now, Malawians have been keenly following TV and radio news and checking social media as vote counting and tallying continues. The Commission has about a week to announce the results. It is said that it had only received about 8 out of the 5,008 polling centers by Wednesday. The results are being manually taken to the National Tally Center in the Southern Commercial Hub in Blantyre. Now, the hotly contested polls were held after the Constitutional Court annulled the narrow victory in 2019 of President Peter Mutharika. More than 6.8 million people were registered to vote in the election, and there's no telling from the 6.8 million registered voters there in Malawi how many actually turned out to vote. I think that will be given after the votes have been the official results have been given by the Malawian Electoral Commission. And we move to Senegal, where Senegal's President Macky Sall has quarantined himself after coming into contact with someone who tested positive for coronavirus. The president himself tested negative, but will self-isolate for 2 weeks as a precaution, his office said in a short televised statement. Senegalese lawmaker Yaya Diallo announced earlier on Wednesday that she had tested positive for the coronavirus. She called on people to take essential personal measures such as maintaining hygiene and social distancing. And we go back to Somalia, where militias in the central Somalia are being encouraged to disarm and join the police. Over the past 2 decades, the Galmudug region has been overrun by various militias, including pirates, Al-Shabaab militants, and the moderate Islamist Ahlu Sunnah wal Jamaa group. And this is what Galmudug State President Ahmed Abdi Kariye said. Over the past 2 decades, the Galmudug region has been overrun by various militias, including we are training those clan militias who will be registered as police officers to protect their people. I tell you. Here, this is Somalia, a country that is overrun by Al-Shabaab and insecurity with other militia groups here, several of them, different types. And we're seeing now the government is encouraging these militias to be retrained and join the police. I think the same thing that the Senate in Nigeria was proposing, that the repentant Boko Haram should be retrained, taken through a workshop, and I don't know what they're going to do, and then have them back join the army, I hear, or I don't know, do what to them. But we see it is the same thing that is happening here in Somalia. I don't know what you make of this. Discouraging them from, engaging in this militia and militant activities, that's good. But should they be retrained for them to join the police? Will they be loyal to start with? Will others take advantage of this and come and learn the operations of the police and the military and then go back and perhaps give the intelligence to their people? I don't know. You tell me if this is a very good idea here. From Somalia now, Mr. Kariye is a close ally of the federal government and was elected in disputed regional poll in early February. I know this guy. And I think we had conversations about him during those elections. Since then, he has managed to reconcile with the opposition and has nominated an all-inclusive cabinet, which has enabled him to focus on development and security. I don't know what you make of this. The Central Somalia militia in central Somalia are now being encouraged to disarm and join the police. Let me know, can this be a solution to defeat the insecurity in Somalia? Can this be a solution to defeat Al-Shabaab thriving in Somalia there? And as you look at that too, that is the same proposal that was being tabled in the Senate then in Nigeria. Coming to a round table with these militia groups, and also I think in which is this country? Is it Mali? Even President Boubacar there is in serious problems due to the protest over the insecurity in that country, and he was also suggesting that the government will reach out to Al-Shabaab, to Boko Haram and other militia groups in that country, so that they can have conversation. And I've just been wondering, you are conversing with a terrorist group so that you do what? You will be encouraging any other people who have dissenting views or who want to achieve a particular goal in a country, and they would want to cause insecurity. Because if you allow these people to come to a round table and have conversations with them, who knows what will happen? Other militia groups will also be encouraged. They'll see, if I want to gain, if I want my voice to be heard in a particular way, if I want to advance a particular ideology, all I need to do is cause insecurity, cause mayhem, kill hundreds of people, and then perhaps the government will hear me and they will call me to the table and we'll have conversations and I will get what I want. That is how I look at it, but perhaps that is a very narrow way of looking at it. I don't know. You tell me what you think. Let's have this conversation and see if reaching out to militia groups and having them on the table so that they say what they want and we find working relations. Basically, that is what that is what will happen. Will this solve the perennial insecurity, especially in certain countries here in the continent? Let me know your thoughts on this. And when you think about that, think about the countries that have been plagued with the rise of these extremist groups, the countries that Boko Haram is very active, and also a country like Somalia, which Al-Shabaab is just running, having a play day there every day. All right. We move to Zimbabwe, where the price of petrol and diesel in Zimbabwe is to more than double with immediate effect, the country's Energy Regulatory Authority has announced. The increase of 150% comes a day after the Zimbabwean dollar fell by more than 50% against international currencies. This happened after the central bank removed a fixed currency exchange rate in place since March and introduced a weekly foreign exchange auction. What? As if whatever that was there wasn't bad enough. Now, Zimbabwe has been plagued by fuel shortages for years, compounded by a lack of foreign currency. All right, I don't know how. And I think Zimbabweans were also protesting early in the year over the same prices of fuel going up. So I'm sure, despite the coronavirus cases, because when the fuel price goes up, everything goes up. Manufacturing, everything that has to pass through manufacturing and production has to go up because of the cost of fuel that will be added to that. So it's already difficult for Zimbabweans. So I'm sure very soon they'll go out there in the streets and start protesting against the increase. The increase, like 150% increase in fuel. I mean, that is so exorbitant there. For people who are already suffering so much. And then we move to Zambia, where Zambia's Health Minister Chitalau Chilufya was arrested on Wednesday and charged with using ill-gotten gains to acquire property, the country's Anti-Corruption Commission has said. Graft investigators honed in on Chilufya, 47, last month after noticing the minister had suddenly amassed a fortune. And now, the arrest follows investigations the commission has been conducting against the minister in relation to the above allegations. That's very interesting. Like, one used to live in a certain estate, but after a while, before you know it, they've gone to the high end, to the leafy suburbs, and now they're living a very comfortable life, and they're driving very, posh cars, and you wonder, your salary does not even match. What other business do you do that all of a sudden has, unless you've won something, unless you are gambling and you won a fortune, but usually if you're working, then it's difficult. So this health minister has been under radar for quite a while, and he's been investigated, and so he had been nabbed finally. So he was fired and he was arrested. Anyway, yesterday there in Zambia. We moved to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and police fired tear gas and water cannon on Wednesday to repel hundreds of protesters whose rally against a proposed new law threatened to spill into the parliament compound in the capital, Kinshasa. Opponents say the reform, which would place prosecutors under the government's authority rather than the courts, undermines the independence of the judiciary. On the second day of protests, crowds of mostly young men chanted and squared up to the security forces on the streets around Parliament before being pushed back by armed forces in jeeps. And then we go to Tanzania, where the government of Tanzania has reiterated its appeal to lenders for cancellation of debts of developing countries to enable them to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Excuse me, this is government of Tanzania, where the land that has no COVID-19. And now what? Let's just listen into this story because this is very interesting. Now, Palamagamba Kabudi, that is the Minister for Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, on Wednesday said cancellation of the debts will enable developing countries, including Tanzania, to use the money earmarked for repaying debts for mitigating the impacts caused by COVID-19. Excuse me, are there impacts caused by COVID-19 in Tanzania? I'm lost. Please help me understand this. Now, a statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation said Kabudi made the appeal in a video conference meeting with officials of the Commonwealth. Now, the statement said the meeting discussed how international organizations could support developing countries in building capacity for production of medical supplies to enable them to cope with outbreaks of pandemics like the COVID-19, which I think the last statement is very good. But where I need to understand is the part that they say that, the money earmarked for repaying debts for mitigating the impacts caused by COVID-19. Because the last time I checked, President Pombe Magufuli said he will not close down the economy. He will not put any travel restrictions in and around Tanzania. So, in fact, he was lashing out on Kenya. And I remember he was caught up in a video saying, you know what, Tanzanians, if you're going to sell your produce to Kenyans who have closed their borders, who have placed all these restrictions because of COVID-19, which is non-existent, according to President Magufuli, and then which is over, according to him, it's over in Tanzania. He said, make sure you charge them utmost, a lot of money for your produce. And so I'm shocked that Tanzania's economy was affected by COVID-19, because from the information that the government has been trying to put across is that Tanzania, it has been business as usual. So people have not been affected. Restrictions were not placed. Borders were not closed. People are not asked not to go to work. No curfew, no nothing. So they have been doing very well. So I'm shocked that actually COVID-19 has affected Tanzanians. I'm confused by the double messaging from the Tanzanian government there. But anyway, yeah. And we move to Sudan, where Sudan's foreign minister said on Tuesday that her country is nearing a deal with Washington to compensate the families of victims of deadly 1998 embassy bombings, paving the way to Khartoum's removal from a U.S. terror blacklist. Now, the massive nearly stimulus blast at the American embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam in August 1998 together killed 224 people and injured around 5,000 almost. All of them were Africans, and Washington has since demanded a compensation for the American victims' families, placed Sudan on a blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism, and imposed crippling sanctions. And we shall talk about that in a short bit. But let's go to South Sudan, where the government of South Sudan has cleared the outstanding contributions to the African Union after the country was suspended from the body last week. This is according to the deputy spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, last week, the African Union banned South Sudan from the continental body over the failure to honor its financial obligations over the past 3 years. The body said South Sudan owed it over $9 million US. Now, the suspension means the government cannot participate in AU meetings or in any of its projects. In a letter addressed to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and seen by iRadio on the 19th of June 2020, South Sudan Ambassador to Ethiopia Peter Morgan described the development as embarrassing and dramatic when South Sudanese diplomats were barred from attending AU meeting 4 days earlier. And right now, Ambassador Hakim Edward is saying, I can confirm as the ministry that the money has been cleared by the Ministry of Finance on behalf of the government of South Sudan. So that is where we are right now. So right now, and then perhaps I'll come back with the rest of the updates and maybe talk a few of these other countries, a bit of Tanzania, Cameroon, and Libya. I'd like for us to just move straight to the daily updates by the Ministry of Health here in Kenya and get the latest there. I'm just crossing my fingers, nothing shocking will come from today's briefing. So let's go crossover straight to Afia House.
See the suffering of many. They see even people who lose their lives. And so they also need to get support. And to be able to get support even when they're in remote areas. That's why we've been able to partner to create a contact center, a call center where someone can call from their job and be able to talk to someone who is experienced and even be able to receive help. We have people across the country, actually in 45 counties, that can be called upon to be able to provide the psychosocial support to all these healthcare workers. And to do this, Kwanza Technopolis is providing the technology in the back end that is required. There's a data center. The data center will store the information of all the healthcare professionals, but also those that are going to be providing them support, so that when you call, they can be able to call up information to know who is the best person, for instance, to give support in Embu, who is the best person to give support in Turkana, if the person calling is from that area. So it is important that you understand the technology really only works with the real people. This is equipment, this is phones, this is computers. And without real people, then you're not able to move forward. So I'm really glad that the healthcare professionals coming together with the Nurses Association, they've actually put this together, and partners like the Equity Group Foundation have come and are paying for some of these people to be able to provide that support that is necessary. During these very difficult times for many, that support goes a long way in ensuring that we continue to have sanity in the country and in ensuring that we move forward. The Konza City, which is a project that is still ongoing, now has a data center and is going to be providing equipment that can be used across all the health centers in the country. We're working on connecting all the health centers to the data center, to the internet, so that we can see many other services being offered. Those VDIs or video devices that are to be provided, these are just terminals that can be used across the whole country, and people can be able to access information. Telemedicine. So you don't necessarily have to go to see doctors all the time. You can actually use this technology, go to a lab, get maybe your results, the doctor will interpret those for you. It limits the amount of contact that is happening. And we are also able to provide better information. So we were talking with Susan, who's one of the professionals that's at the call center, and she was saying that for people it's even better when they are calling and giving their problem over the phone or using technology. When it's face to face, sometimes you are shy to give the full picture, but with technology you can actually be able to say even more. Obviously, you all know that's been the case with social media. People say whatever they want to say, whether it is insults or what. But I'm glad that now technology is being used even for positive benefits for everybody, and now starting with the healthcare workers. It's our intention to expand this infrastructure so that we can have all citizens being able to have a call center where they can also call to get this kind of support. So I hope I've not been very technical. I try to make sure that this is as straightforward and as easy for everybody. It is a great thing that, one, everybody has come together. That unity that we are seeing from the healthcare workers, including the landlord, the Kenyatta hospitals, is not even charging rent. So I think, Colonel, if you know that space we are looking for, ongea na yeye kidogo, we might also be able to benefit. So with those remarks, let me declare this call center open and say that this is a start, and progression of this partnership. We expect it to grow even more. Konza is very committed to ensuring that this is expanded across the country, as I said. And as we work in all this, we hope that as media, you will continue to capture these developments that we're making. And really, it is our hope that even post-COVID, we will not lose these advantages that we've gained by using technology, and that we can be able to use this even going forward. It's helping us in terms of efficiency. It's helping us in many ways in ensuring that everybody has the right information. So with those few remarks, let me welcome back CAS Mwangangi. She will now give us the numbers on COVID-19, and I hope they're not going to be depressing today. Asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you, Waziri Mosheru. Today, again, we are very privileged to be here for our 99th briefing, and on a day where we are here to support our healthcare workers and partnering, as the Waziri has said, together, celebrating the handshake between different cadres in health, but also partnerships with different institutions and organizations. And so for that, we are grateful and we are happy to be here. And as mentioned, again today, I had a very long, elaborate speech that really tries to highlight our engagement and our use of ICT within the Ministry of Health. And what I'll do before I get into the numbers, which I'm sure is something that you're waiting for, is perhaps to just emphasize that really ICT and technology plays a key role in moving the health sector forward, and is actually fundamental to the attainment of the universal health coverage agenda. As you can see today, we are here working on, with our healthcare workers, a key building block when it comes to health systems, ensuring that we are taking care of them, that they are protected, and that they are contributing well in terms of this coronavirus pandemic. And so we do appreciate and recognize the sacrifice that nurses have made in the country as they continue to fight this virus, and not just nurses, as we say today, but all healthcare workers. I am informed that this call center really will be able to come in handy in terms of meeting the needs of all the healthcare workers. And today, as highlighted by Waziri Mosheru, there was a healthcare worker there, Susan, who really has told us of the importance of this center, the way that this center provides comfort. This center actually encourages healthcare workers to be able to speak out and to share their experiences and whatever difficulties they may be having in the field. And as she was taking us through this, she mentioned an important component of referral systems. Again, a sector or a specialty in health that can really benefit from ICT. The idea that this call center has actually mapped out all the different mental health practitioners in the country. And therefore, the referral system is that much better. As Susan attends to our healthcare workers, she's able to redirect them to their nearest center, and we're able to harness ICT in that space. Coming back to COVID, as we started our coronavirus response early on in the year in March, it's important to note again the Emergency Operations Center, again, that is housed by the landlord here and not charged, it's right there on that end of Kenyatta, was actually really utilizing ICT services. When you do visit that center, and perhaps the next briefing should be near there, you'll note and appreciate that the Emergency Operations Center really is every one of you is able to access the healthcare services that they need, that we're able to identify you, that we're able to reduce fraud, we're able to be more accountable, all through ICT. Now to the numbers. Today, we had 3,918 samples that were tested. 178 people tested positive for coronavirus. This brings to total our country caseload to 5,384 so far. And cumulatively, we have tested 314,000. All the positive cases, except 3, are foreigners. We have 123 males and 55 females. And our youngest today is a 1-year-old infant. And now the oldest is 76. Nairobi is leading today with 100 cases, followed by Kajiado with 21. We have Migori having 17, Kiambu 16, Busia 8, Mombasa 7, Machakos 4, Nakuru 2, Uasin Gishu, Kericho, and Taita Taveta each have 1 case. It's important to note and to appreciate that today we've discharged 34 patients. This brings the total number of recoveries to 1,857. We have also lost 2 patients today, sadly, and therefore our tally in terms of fatalities comes to 132. And our heartfelt condolences are extended to families and friends who've lost loved ones. Today, we will not be able to go through the disaggregation, but we have that data provided for you. As promised also, we've been able to provide for you a table that looks at the different positivity rates per county in terms of the samples that we've collected. And as I conclude, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all members who are present here today, taking recognition of all the healthcare workers who are here today. Let me assure you really, from the beginning of the coronavirus response, all these faces that you see here were not sleeping. Perhaps they might be the first customers of this call center today. I'm sure they could share lots and lots of stories with you in terms of the hardships faced and, the mental health issues that come with dealing with such a pandemic. However, we are stronger today. Again, through that collaboration, we've been able to set this up. And remember, we also have a similar service that is available for you Kenyans, 719, again, a call center that is in this same complex. Utilize this facility. Mental health is not an issue to be ashamed of. We all are able to, be afflicted from this or have suffered at one point or another in our lives. And so let's come together, assist each other, and try and, move the country forward. I do want to continue to urge you again and to remind you to continue adhering to the containment measures. Let us wash our hands. Let us physically distance. Let us mask. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much, Waziri. Maybe time to ask questions now?
Yes, we can have questions.
Please, you can use this one here, so that we can hear you. Please come closer here.
My name is Purity Muse from KBC. I have 2 concerns. One is on the capacity of 100 days now. The test that we are conducting still varying samples, 2,000, 6,000. So have you been able to establish how we can get a constant figure so that we may know whether the rate of infection is going high or low? And number 2, how many health workers have tested positive so far? And the ones that you had reported, do we have recoveries or even fatalities from that number?
Any other?
My name is Bernard Gitau from People Daily newspaper. My question goes to CS Musheru. We have had some claims that those countries that have taken and embraced 5G, they have the high cases of COVID. And in the country, we have those masks. And some are calling for them to be removed. And I don't know, that's a claim that is all over. What is your opinion on that? And my last question goes to the CES. It goes to deal with poor sanitation. As we have the COVID in this country for the last over 100 days, we have seen the improvement in terms of hand washing and improved sanitation. In terms of the disease burden trend, have you seen the reduction? And if you have seen, at what rate? And we have seen the country have been losing a lot of money because of poor sanitation related diseases. At this moment, in the last 3 months, how much have we saved as a ministry in terms of the reduction, if there is any, of those diseases? Thank you.
My name is Mwangi Maina from TV47. I have 2 questions to CS Dr. Mercy Mwangangi. First, previously you were saying you were giving us figures, a breakdown from Nairobi, especially in areas in Kawangware, Kibra, and Mathare. What happened? Those areas have ceased to become hotspots. Then question 2, do we still have Kenyans or people who are in quarantine facilities, and what is the condition of the quarantine facilities? We have complaints from Thika Level 5 hospital that the situation in that place is deplorable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Graham Kajila from The Standard. My question is about the Jitenge app that you had proposed earlier. What happened to it? Why is it not being used in the home-based care guidelines? And I would like an update on the 719 uptake of the emergency calls.
Great. Thank you. Let me start with Graham's question. So 719, call center is actually here, and it continues to thrive. As mentioned, we do have 16 medical officers who are there. Again, a partnership with Safaricom, Ministry of ICT, Ministry of Health, and different partners, including KMA, who was involved in the training of these medical officers. The hotline continues to function. However, we've noticed that there's a declining trend in terms of the calls that Kenyans are making. And so we continue to appeal to Kenyans to make use of this line. The workers are there, they're ready for you, they're waiting, they're well trained, they have the material, the knowledge that they need in terms of relaying the correct information to you. So 719 continues on and it is active. Regarding the Jitenge app, along with many other numerous apps, I'm happy that today we are here with Waziri Msheru, just because he put together a team that was looking at innovative use of ICT when it comes to COVID-19. And so I'm sure he'll help me here in providing an update as to where that team is, because this team is going to look at all these applications, ensure that the applications meet the various protocols, that the applications are able to adhere to the various laws that exist when it comes to data protection and privacy. And so I think he'll provide a better update as to how that would be looking like. But it's an application that we really see will be useful when it comes to home-based care and moving forward. In terms of a question, I think, from Purity. Thank you, Purity. You've raised concern of varying samples, and you've requested that we have constant samples in a day. Perhaps what I can say is that part of how we collect our samples really is dictated by the system we've set up in place in terms of the rapid response. So usually how this works is that the team sitting at the AOC is able to receive alerts from across the country. And remember, in the beginning, starting with 2 labs, we were able to move to 27 right now. So we have these alerts coming in, and this team is then therefore able to redirect that call to the necessary county. So for example, they get a call and it's coming in from Turkana. They're then able to transfer that alert to Turkana County. Turkana County is able to mobilize its county response team.
Vergeten om thuis de deur af te sluiten? Geen zorgen. Ons nieuwe beveiligingssysteem verandert.
When it comes to processing and running tests for PCRs, the numbers can never be a constant 3,000 every day. There will be variations depending on the alerts that are coming in. And remember also, we are testing people who may be in quarantine, people who may be discharged from home quarantine. There are many, many processing and testing sort of centers that are there. So to get a constant number is difficult. But then I think also what you're calling for perhaps is increasing in terms of capacity for our testing. And I'm glad to note that the ministry has improved its capacities and continues to improve its capacities. And so in the coming days, you'll see more numbers of testing. We have kits that are coming in, some that we expect to be here. And so these numbers will continue to increase and our testing capacity will improve. Concerning the issue of sanitation, again, time and time again, we've emphasized hand washing is the trick when it comes to coronavirus, and perhaps even the trick when it comes to many other ailments that deal with water and sanitation. What we've seen is that there's been a mixed picture. We've had some reduction in some areas. We've had fewer reported cases of diarrheas and choleras, and we've had, in other instances, a plateauing of the cases. What we are doing internally as a Ministry of Health is to be able to sit and look at our data holistically and perhaps look at our data beyond this time of COVID to be able to really come with a true picture of whether there's been a true reduction or a true increase when it comes to these diseases. And again, in terms of costs, it's important to note, putting a patient through treatment, say a patient who has most of the time a waterborne disease, would require admission, would require IV fluids. There's a lot of care that goes into that. So once we do our data, and our data tells us that we actually have less cases, then of course we expect to see reduced costs. Allow us to work on that and perhaps give you a quantitative figure in the future. Someone mentioned today that I said we won't share our disaggregation. What I mean is that today, because we are here and it's a very cold day, the sun is really, at the lowest tone, we will not go into disaggregation of the whole country in terms of the sub-counties and the wards that we have. But we have that information for you. Kawangware remains a spot. We have those figures. The different rural areas that we've been highlighting, Westlands, remains a spot. We are seeing Kilimani, that remains a spot in Nairobi, and the same of different other areas in Mombasa County and the other counties. Busia, there's a spot there again, especially at the entry for the truck drivers. So this data is available. We are not saying, and I don't think we've been able to declare that any area that was once a hotspot is no longer a hotspot. In fact, yesterday we were able to articulate that Mombasa now has the highest attack rate. It means if you're in Mombasa, you're most at risk. It means when you're in Nairobi and you're in Westlands, Kilimani, Kawangware, then you're most at risk. And so we'll continue aggregating this data, and it's available for you for the whole country, for all the afflicted 40 counties. I think at this point, I'd like to invite CS Musheru to answer a few more questions, and then Dr. Kamuri will be able to explain further when it comes to the testing for COVID.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Of 7 years for the 2 offenses or not. Guided by law and by previous judicial decisions, the resounding answer is a no. This is because these 2 offenses are generally subject to the objects and purposes of sentencing. And some of the guidelines that direct this, Your Honor, is the sentencing guidelines that were published in 2011 pursuant to the Judicial Service Act of 2011. Under clause 3.5 of the guidelines, Your Honor, one of the considerations that the court should take into account are respect for human rights. And in particular, that when a court imposes a sentence, it must uphold the dignity of the individual. To put it differently, Your Honor, that a sentence should not make a human being to appear as a dispensable quantity. That's what dignity protects. The same clause 3.5 also says that courts should opt for sentences that are likely to promote rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is a key objective of sentencing because it aims to give the offender an opportunity to reform and to be a law-abiding citizen. And we are asking that this particular principle should be the driving force behind any sentence that this court may impose. UNA's emphasis in the year 2013, 19 prisons closed down in the Netherlands. And the reason why they closed down was because the country did not have enough criminals. In fact, a year before that, the country imported 240 prisoners from Norway to keep them.
Sorry, Your Honor, to interject. My learned friend gave us the source of this information. That we also able to respond.
I want to respond to a question that was within the public domain. If you go to BBC, it covered this story.
What is the source of your information? I think that is a legitimate expectation.
Oh, okay, Your Honor, I had felt that this information is in the public domain, but if Mr. Muteti wants me to, and I don't think he needs to respond to it because I'm trying to just persuade the court about the philosophy behind rehabilitation.
No, this is a court of law, and Your Honor will strongly object it should be stopped in that line of submission.
Yes, Mr. Okubas, unfortunately we cannot work on something that has no legal basis. If it has a legal foundation, then we can proceed to have it.
It is not a legal authority I'm referring to. That's why I did supply a copy to Mr. Muteti. But anyone who pays keen attention to the fourth estate has come across this information. I'm not suggesting that Mr. Muteti does not pay attention to the fourth estate, but I can drop that line of submission. Yes. Yes, Your Honor, so one of the considerations in some that should guide you is the need to rehabilitate, which normally acts against a custodial sentence. The second principle that should guide the court is what is set out in statute, and we're referring to section 26(2) of the Penal Code, which provides that the court might impose a shorter sentence, and that has indeed been the practice. Until recently, Your Honor, it had been known that certain types of offences, such as murder, attract a mandatory sentence set out in statute, but the Supreme Court has advised us otherwise. And I wouldn't go into that, except just to emphasize that statute gives courts the discretion to determine a shorter sentences than one that has been set out. The third consideration, Your Honor, is that the age of an accused person is a very important consideration that cannot be ignored. Your Honor, I will be referring my colleague, Mr. Moteti in particular, to a judgment of Wilson Kipkorir Kosgei versus Republic, and I'll be supplying the court with a copy. And this judgment dealt with the question that is very similar to what we are dealing with here today. And Honor, under paragraph 4, here, my view, his immortality in justice jurisprudence, when he said, under paragraph 34, that a time has come, and I'm quoting him verbatim, that a time has come for our criminal justice system to review sentencing and to determine which can be adjusted to reduce the elderly prisoners' population without risking public safety. He was talking about elderly persons. In that case, the appellant was 80 years old during the trial, and at the time of writing the judgment, Justice Mativo speculated that he was about 85. And the judge said in the judgment that correctional facilities should review the conditions of confinement for elderly prisoners and advised for what he called services and programs that enable them to make changes and to ensure that human rights are met. But the most important point, he said, in this case that was dealing with sexual offenses, that the maximum penalty was not necessary in the circumstances because of the age of the accused person. And Your Honor, I'll therefore be asking you to consider the pronouncements of Justice Mativo as one of the considerations when you are deciding on the proper sentence to impose, particularly on the first accused. And in fact, Your Honor, more particularly,
the citation again, please.
It is the case of Wilson Kipchirchir Kosgei versus Republic. It's Criminal Appeal number 333 of 2013 at Nakuru, the High Court sitting at Nakuru. And I want to read a sentence of that judgment as my next consideration. Justice Mativo said, keeping a person aged 85 in prison under conditions when he is not a danger even to himself is something that should prick the conscience of humanity. And our entire criminal justice system. And Mativo said this under paragraph 35, that this amounts to sentencing a person to slow death. That's what his words are. cites Chief Justice John Marshall and says that are not mere instrument of law, nothing. That's what he says. And all of this judgment has very compelling force. The last consideration, Your Honor, that I would like you to take into account is the character of the accused person. That is a consideration. So, Your Honor, guided by these considerations, our humble view is that in respect of the offences set out in the penal code, the first accused does not deserve a custodial sentence. She deserves something different. The first accused is 9 years age. She's probably older than all of us gathered here today. And all she deserves from us fairness when we are to judge her. Ms. Gateru told us last week that in spite of her age, 79 years, is a first offender. This is not an effort to discard when sentencing her. Your Honor, we have perused legal authorities dealing with the two sets of offenses, that is uttering and perjury, and related offenses like fraud. And we are convinced on this occasion, beyond reasonable doubt, that the court should impose a fine for those two offenses for 100,000 shillings for each of them. Your Honor, our conviction is based on a decision of the Court of Appeal in the case of Joseph Mureithi Kanyita versus Republic, which is Criminal Appeal number 35 of 2017. This is litigation that started in the Chief Magistrate's Court and ended up at the Court of Appeal, the trial court had imposed a fine of 100,000 shillings, or in the alternative, 6 months of imprisonment. And the Director of Public Prosecutions was unhappy with that decision. He filed an appeal to the High Court before Justice Macharia Ngenye, and the High Court found that the punishment was not commensurate with the offense. In particular, there was an amount of money, a property valued at 65 million, if I'm not wrong, which the complainant was likely to lose, unless I am misreading the judgment, but I'll give the copy to the court, and therefore enhanced the sentence. When the matter reached the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal took issues with the enhancement and reinstated the fine of 100,000, basically the trial court's penalty. And that is now the law as we speak. Nothing has changed. And we're asking this court to be guided by the wisdom in this judgment of the Court of Appeal and sentence the first accused to a fine of 100,000 for counts number 1 and number 2. We could have asked Your Honor for a smaller amount, but we have no precedent, so we will be guided by what the Court of Appeal has said. The last set of counts are under ASECA. That's count number 3 and count number 4. And Your Honor, under count number 3 and number 4, statute gives you discretion again. It tells you that you can impose a fine of not more than 1 million shillings or an imprisonment. In a case where a fine has been set out in statute by Parliament, when we are urging that based on the considerations you've argued, the path to take that is fair, that is just and lawful, is one that leans towards a lenient fine. Lastly, Your Honor, Section 48 also enjoins the court to impose a mandatory fine. This mandatory fine, Your Honor, is computed on the basis of the benefit that somebody received as a result of the complaint conduct. In its judgment and during hearing, this court alluded, reference was made to a figure that is known, a figure of 40 million shillings. And we are asking that when the court is computing the mandatory fine, it's not a mandatory sentence, a mandatory fine. There's a distinction there with a difference, that the court should consider only 40 million shillings on account of the first accused. Your Honor, lastly, we are also asking the court to consider that it's only part of the decretal amount that had been challenged through the criminal court. In fact, Your Honor, there was an excess of 2.7 million, even in respect of the amount disclosed in the charge. The accused person has informed me, and indeed I'm aware, that she is quite remorseful. Your Honor, she informs me that she is also deeply regretful she regrets that she tendered for the supply of 40,000 metric tons of maize. Had she not done that, we will not be here today. And she's asking that you exercise your discretion in her favor, grant her an uncustodial sentence, a fine, in consideration also that she is ailing. She has been for some time now on high blood pressure treatment. We have presented one or two documents in the course of trial, either asking for an adjournment or explaining her absence in court on an occasion. And we ask that this court does not spell a punishment that will be deleterious to her health. I'll stop there and ask, I'll ask later Mr. Nweki to make an application following my submissions.
Advocate, are you seeking to make the application?
Mr. Nweki said he will make an application.
So which application is not for the first accused? We are stopping, you stop, you hand over the mantle to the second accused.
Okay, Your Honor, perhaps we can assist the court. We thought that to save the court's time,
yes,
since the application cuts across the subjects,
yes,
we make it as one.
One application.
One application.
So what does Mr. Kubasu is telling the court?
He's saying now
that the cart before the horse.
The point he wanted to raise, yes, will mean repetition. He wants me to raise them globally when I make the application.
So you do it at the end of the submission?
Yes. Yeah. For good order. So now Mr. Nyaberi will start back in the mitigation.
Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of the second accused, before you is a 59-year-old male adult who is or has been a career civil servant. He joined the civil service in 1981, and he has had an illustrious career as a civil servant with a background training as a military man, where he rose through the ranks from that of a constable to a major before calling it a day by resignation in 1996. In part of the history as the background of the offender is that upon resigning, he engaged in consultancy services and majorly engaged in road constructions in the greater Western Kenya region. You know, he is a graduate, he's a degree holder from the Mount Kenya University, and currently he is a master's student at the Kibabii University. Besides that, as also background info, is that he is a director of the third accused before you. And in the year 2013, he tried his luck in elective politics, and he is now a member of parliament for Sirisia constituency of the Bungoma County. You know, he's serving his second term in parliament, having joined in 2013. That is a brief background in terms of his history, where he's come from and where he is. In these submissions in mitigation, I'll structure the same in subheadings. So I'll address you on family connections. You know, the accused person is a husband to one Roslyn Waluke, who is in court. She's someone seated behind, and Irene Waluke. These two are dependents on the accused person as the sole breadwinner to their respective households. Besides, Your Honor, there are issues that have been gotten from that union, where, if you allow me, I will mention that they have 6 issues together, jointly. The first one being Eunice Waluke, a 32-year-old adult. Eric Waluke, 29-year-old, is a student at the MK University.
You want me to write them down? Is it the names of Eunice?
It's Eunice, Eric, who is a student. CD, who is a student.
CD.
CIDY. Yes. Nelson, who is also a student, 27-year-old, still at Barton. And there are two minors, KW and CW, aged 6 and 4, respectively. Besides, he is a grandfather to 4 minors, and also looking upon him for support is his aged mom, who is 80 years of age, 80. Besides these members that I've mentioned, who solely depend on the accused, and in full satisfaction of the responsibility in the African traditional society setup, he is also aiding or assisting his maternal and paternal uncles back in the village. The spectrum of the relatives that he assists is 70 plus members that look up to him for support. I have endeavored to make a list that are supplied to court of those members that he is supporting for purposes of the court satisfying itself to their existence. Now, having given that connection of the support that he gives to the family, and on account of the limited time that we have, allow me to address you on the past criminal history of the accused. As rightly submitted, when the court made a finding of guilt on his part, the state did confirm that indeed the second accused has never been found on the wrong side of the law, save for this case that has found him, that we are dealing with. In fact, even getting the issues like certificate of good conduct and the attendant issues when he was in his campaign period is telling enough that he is a law-abiding citizen, and he has been up until this came knocking at his door. I'm informed, to inform the court, I'm told to inform the court that he appreciates the finding that this court gave, and with that finding, we will seek for an opportunity elsewhere in terms of realizing the aspirations of his societal standing vis-a-vis the finding of the court. The accused person has responsibilities. Besides the family responsibility that in supporting the immediate and extended family, Your Honor, he is supporting orphans within the Sirisia constituency. He is paying fees. He's agitated for the rights of the vulnerable within the Sirisia constituency. And even had to make allocations across the board for the vulnerable groupings in Sirisia constituency where he has rolled out support to them. In a sense, we can say he's the cornerstone, he's the pillar to many. On account of the support that he has rolled out. In Nairobi, he stays in a house that is under mortgage. And the salary from Parliament is all that he uses to offset the mortgage. And amongst the very many obligations, he is able to then support the immediate family with a house. And if he's given a custodial sentence, all that crumbles and there are very many people who will be left destitute. The stipends that he gives in meeting the various concerns and facets of the needs of the people from Sirisia makes him a suitable candidate for a non-custodial sentence. You know, the accused from the time, the second accused from the time of getting into the August house has really endeavored to enhance progress, development, within the larger Sirisia constituency through the initiatives that he has rolled out. And there's a transformation that has occurred within that constituency on account of the position that he holds in society. Sirisia constituency has 3 wards, whose MCAs, I believe, are in court, the 3 of them. They could be in court. If they are not there, they were locked out. And they will indeed attest to the fact that the second accused is a people's man. He has brought that which they have been yearning for all the years, and within a short span of 7 years, they are seeing the results.
My lady, I'm sorry to interject. I think my learned friend is now giving evidence, and we will have difficulties responding to that for 2 reasons. He has now veered off the realm of mitigation to giving evidence that should sway this court one way or the other. I think he needs to focus on what mitigation is all about, because those are facts we cannot challenge.
You know, this is a mitigation, and the purpose of mitigation is to make the court appreciate the kind of sentence that is to be meted on the subject that is before the court. And among the grounds and parameters that we operate on is that we paint a picture of what the accused person is in society vis-a-vis the decision that the court is going to make, so that that decision is informed of the ramifications.
Please go on, but avoid being repetitive. Please proceed.
Very well. Very well. Thank you. Most obliged. You know, that development is telling, and we urge the court to kindly consider and exercise discretion in the favor of the second accused for purposes of enabling him conclude his term in Parliament and also roll out the aid to the many who depend on him. Because of the objections by my senior Muteti, I could have gone on to say of the development that he has done, the development projects that he has done in the constituency, but that will be tackled by my senior, Mr. Onyeki, when he's making the application that we intend to make. Now, you want to allow me to also submit that he is a mentor to many. And through the mentorship and tutelage, there has been a turnaround of the people that we represent and the area, as it were, owing to the injection of his mind to the people of Sirisa. You know, with this, then it paints the accused person, the second accused person, as an integral player and a primary caregiver to his constituents. And the said constituents have a solid, legal, and legitimate expectation that he clears with them through representation in Parliament, which term is running. Yona, allow me to address you on health status. The second accused person is sickly. He's had bouts with his doctors in and out, especially at the Nairobi hospital. And to prove to that, Your Honor, allow me kindly that I share with the court only, with the exclusion of the prosecution, his medical history, because that is the confidentiality that he has with his doctors. And now that we are, I'm sure this is the media and it's live, so that we don't just broadcast his ailments to the world.
You have the records?
I have the record. They are with me here, several of them. I have to ask that they be carried here. I will tender as a bundle to the court for purposes of the court satisfying itself that indeed he has been a patient at the Nairobi hospital previously.
Are they X-rays or what are they?
They are reports and some of the same X-rays down there. The court, when it refuses,
please just remove the X-rays, just give me the reports themselves, and I'm hoping that the court can be able to interpret them.
Yes, they are I was able to understand what they were all about.
Okay, just I may not be able to go with them. Kindly remove the reports themselves and kindly keep the X-rays especially. Give me the reports, I'll be able to look at them. Yes.
That we speak about his health condition. Yes. But I think we are entitled in law to see any document that is applied to the court.
I think let them let the prosecution.
We will look at them. We will not see them. So we just look at them.
If the prosecutor wants to look at the X-rays, everything, give them to him, but the court will just require the
just the reports. Okay. Just the reports. We just see them.
As he is on this, to save on time, let the prosecution be looking at it. Once it's done, then the court can look at it.
You know, the court court will find time to look at the report because they are self-explanatory in terms of what we present. And we shall be able to issue copies to the court. Now, I want you to train my eyes on the means of livelihood. Means of livelihood. Majorly, the income for the second accused is his salary and allowances from the National Assembly. The only try he made in terms of business was with the third accused, which was a cropper, on account of issues that it has had and the brush with the law. And therefore, the only source of income for the third accused is his salary. And that makes me submit that with the discretion that the court is clocked with, a custodial order will deal a great and big blow on him and his dependents, including the beneficiaries of his rollout and the people, the great people of Silisia constituency. With the little salary that he gets from Parliament, he has been able to touch and grab the hearts of many. And with your discretion, which the law allows you to exercise, we plead that you consider a non-custodial sentence so that he can be able to reach out to the many members that he is serving. In regard to his social status, the people of Silisia constituency hold him in high esteem. They have a degree of expectation from him. He is the father figure to many. And therefore, we plead that you give effect to the law on discretion to accord him a non-custodial sentence. Because him being the father and mentor and caregiver to the family is a cornerstone to many. You know, the accused person is a Protestant by religion. And the more reason why he has had to roll out and develop churches within his area, and is a God-fearing man. If it were to be possible, which I know my colleague is going to address you on, in fact, if a probation officer's report was to be ordered for, it will confirm and attest to the submissions that I'm making. Now, what impact then shall the sentence of this court cause to the accused vis-a-vis the societal standing on account of the history that I've given? A custodial order will deal a blow to that. And in addressing this, I wish to invite the court to the statute, that is the books of statutes, being the Penal Code, the Constitution of Kenya, the Criminal Procedure Code, the Judiciary Sentencing and Policy Manual Guideline, and the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. 2013. Those are the issues that have a run on in terms of this submission. The accused person has been found guilty on counts 3, 4, and 5. These counts relate to ASECA 2003 and Section 48 of 48.1 of ASECA is couched in a manner that gives this court discretion, because it says a fine not exceeding 1 million shillings. It therefore means the court has a way of considering that which I've presented as the history of the accused to give him very lenient terms which are non-custodial. There is 48.2 of ASECA, which gives a mandatory additional fine. Your Honor, in so arriving at that, we urge the Honorable Court to look at, not to be swayed by the enormous figure of 297 or 314 million shillings that have been echoed by the prosecution, but to look at that which is alleged to have gone into his, directly into his possession on account of the finding of the court. So that of that amount, it is multiplied by 2, being the mandatory issue, but my senior colleague is going to take you through that so that it don't become repetitive. I will therefore leave or submit on issues to do with the sentencing policy guidelines. You know, in the judiciary's sentencing policy guidelines at 7.19, bullet number 2, it gives leeway to first offenders as the second accused to be granted an uncustodial sentence when the factors that are in existence are not impinging on the suitability thereof. And as we speak, there is no any precondition that is going to impeach that aspect of a non-custodial sentence.
Then very until you need to wrap up, your time is up.
My 10 minutes are up.
Is it 10 minutes that are up or what is up? For how long has it been? You just used the entire time for the first accused, second accused.
No, so unfortunately, when you're on your feet, I think, I mean, the interjections that were given, kindly, I don't know whether...
You know, you gave us 50 minutes. We have not spent 50 minutes. Yeah, you gave us 10, so that's where we are trying to divide it. I know he has taken more.
I thought later, and they said that the second accused will get fair and due advantage. And I guided that Mr. Okubasu, you said it would take 25 minutes?
Yes, 20 plus 5 from Mr. Sainde.
From Sainde, and the Sainde will take 15 minutes. My consideration is that the advocate for the second accused will take 30 minutes, all of them together.
Okay, we stand guided, Your Honor, but we were never informed of that decision.
Yes.
But let us now reorganize so that we are able to to do what we intended to do?
Because on the sentencing policy, that has been touched by most of us.
Yes.
And I think Mr. Nyaberi is repeating on it.
Okay.
Listen, allow me to address one issue that he never addressed you on. Especially, let me just maybe make a mention that in the sentencing policy, we kindly look at 7.2, 7.6, juxtaposing it with section 26.2 of the Penal Code on the discretion, and also section 37 of the which is to the aspect of the concurrent and consecutive sentencing. And we will kindly urge that the sentences, you make a pronouncement that they don't run consecutive, not concurrent. The implication of a custodial order is monumental because it will affect several facets and arms of government, including Parliament, including the risk of the second accused losing his parliamentary seat, where IEPC will come into play. It's another organ that is going to be affected if a custodial order was to issue. The National Police Service, for if there was to be an election. The Prisons Department to take care of him as he gets into prison. The great people of Sirisia constituency getting affected. Most importantly, the exchequer. These are the institutions that are echoed in 26.2 and 26.5 of the Judiciary Sentencing Policy Guidelines, such that the discretion then should be exercised in the favor of an custodial sentence. That is the point we want to make. We're in abnormal times, which call for abnormal interventions. And of these abnormal times, we urge you to also accommodate and temper justice with mercy by according the second accused an opportunity to serve. I invite you to section 175(3)(b), Roman 1 and Roman 2 of the Criminal Procedure Code on the compensation. And this case is conjoined with some arbitral proceedings, which proceedings are pending before the Court of Appeal. And much as Section 193A allows for concurrent proceedings, we kindly urge you to consider that the issues that are of criminal nature here are the very issues that are before the appellate court for determination, even when these are criminal proceedings and the other are civil in nature. So that, Your Honor, the rest of my colleagues also have a bite of the cherry, we kindly plead with you that you get moved by Article number 52P of the Constitution for the accused to be accorded, but that is, let me leave it for my colleague Cliff to iron out on that end. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Your Honor, try to speak as fast as possible and try to avoid all the repetitions. Yes, sir. Let me start by first of all saying this. On the day this judgment was passed, when the accused person came to this court, probably was very hopeful that he was going to go home that day. And probably when he left home, he must have informed the family that he's going to come back home. But this did not happen. The court had made its finding. And today, you have the second accused person sitting here before you. The court has convicted him. In essence, what has it done to him, Your Honor? It has deflated him. You will notice from the time that he has been coming to court, the kind of confidence that he has been exhibiting when he comes to this court. Today it is not there. Today when you look at him, he is a broken man. He accepts the findings, but still wants to touch your heart and wants to plead with you. That you exercise, as you're doing this justice, you also exercise some mercy. And this, Your Honor, as we extend our hands towards your heart, we know it is in your discretion. Every single moment ever since he was charged for this offense, Your Honor, he has regretted that these events came to pass. And when somebody comes and tells you he's regretting, Your Honor, what do? You look at him with mercy. You side with him for a moment. And you listen to his pleas. When these offenses occurred, starting from the year 2009, he was not a member of parliament at that time. He was running a business. So at that particular time, when he was involved in these transactions, Your Honor, he never knew that a day like this would come, and it has dawned today. But thereafter, he became a member of parliament. So he becomes a member of parliament. What does that show you, Your Honor? It shows you that the people on the ground, on the constituency he comes from, have a reason to have put him there. And that is because they trust him, they like him, and they believe in him. So if you are to take that side, Your Honor, don't you think that you can also believe in him and see that he can be a better person today? And therefore, if you think so, if you side with us for a moment, then you'd want to consider what we are saying, that an uncustodial sentence would be appropriate. And when you look at Penal Code, Section 35(1), you have the discretion to discharge him. That section does not say only which particular offenses. It says you can discharge a person. But then you also give him conditions. And one of the conditions is that he does not commit an offense for the next 1 year or the next 12 months. Please, Your Honor, we are requesting that you look at it. We are humbly asking that this is something that you can be able to extend to the accused persons today. And this, we are not demanding, Your Honor. Please, we are on bended knee. We are not demanding. We are requesting. And we know that, and Your Honor, just When we come to court here, we always hope that by the time you're coming to court, the court will also be in that particular mode to be able to extend this to us. So sometimes you pray that will the court wake up on the left side or the right side of the bed? And we're believing that we are on the right side today, Your Honor. We still want to touch your heart. But Your Honor, if you were to look at that section, and then you also have to look at Article 50 of the Constitution, Article 52P. It is a right which we are not demanding, but it's a right today we are begging, Your Honor. We are not demanding for it, we are begging that you give us the most lenient sentence, and that is provided for in the fundamental rights. It is provided for. Again, for that one, we are on bended knee, and we are saying, give us the lenient. Then that article, what does it say also? You look at the age, and this is not a young man. You look at the circumstances, and you'll find one thing, Your Honor. He has come to court regularly, religiously. That is why he respects this court, and he knows what his duty was to court. Your Honor, is that a kind of person that you would want today to lock up? He has no previous antecedents. Shows you then, this is a good man. Today, would you want to lock up a good man? And we are hoping that you will be siding with us and saying no. He is a person who has worked with the civil service, and my colleague mentioned it. He was a corporal before he became a major in the army. How do you get to become a major? Not because you are a bad person, but because you are effective and you are doing your duty well and you have no bad record. Please put that into consideration. When he became a major and the time he retired, it is because he was a good person. So you have two instances where he's become a member of parliament by being a good person and also rising to the rank of the major by being a good person. So let's come to the issue then. How does this affect him? In as much as he's displeased, in as much as he has been punctured, he has a family. We have been told this family depends on him, but much more than that. If you let him go home today, if you were to allow him an uncustodial sentence, what would happen? You'd be having a good person going to inform the people at home of why you should obey the law. So you'll be having a good teacher. You'll be having a good example. You'll be having a good man going back home and talking to people. Not only his family, but the constituency, the people who depend on him. If today you lock him up, his salary is not there anymore. He's locked up completely. Then the family suffers. Let's look at the remoteness of it. What happens to the family? The students are in college, they will stop going. They are depending on him, they'll have nobody to depend on. The small grandchildren who will be given some grandfatherly advice will not have him in the presence. The damage will be even much bigger. Please allow him today to go. Your Honor, if then you were to observe that Article 50, then it will bring us to Article 20 of the Constitution, whereby the court is bound by these details. But today we are not asking you to be bound. Today we are asking you to look at it in a way that wants to favor us. And all state organs in Article 21 must want to also look at it that way. But by looking at it in Article 21, of wanting to look at it in a favorable manner, in a way that wants to promote it, it also says you must consider the elderly, the vulnerable, the children, and everybody else. And these accused persons fall in that category. Your Honor, one of my colleagues has said that if you put the accused person in custody, probably it will be a slow death. Yes. And one of the cases that we had and we had pleaded at some time back, it was the Gakuo case. We tried so much to plead that he could be released. But he died in custody. He was old, he was unwell. And what am I saying by this, Your Honor? We have been given medical documents to show you that the accused person is actually unwell. If he's unwell and is before you, would you want to look at him sympathetically? We are saying, please do. Because why? He is capable of being rehabilitated. With that medical condition and he's out here, he can be able to step forward and do. But if he's in custody, Your Honor, then you will have nobody to come and after this sentence to exist. Your Honor, if you have then looked at that Article 20 and then you have looked at 21, please, Your Honor, allow me to just mention that inasmuch as he has been convicted, he still has some dignity to maintain.
Please proceed.
Yes, his dignity is as a result of being a member of parliament. He then has a social standing in society. Today, if you let him go, he still has that part that he can be able to stand with that dignity and be able to talk to anybody else, his constituents, his family, and everybody else. Today, Your Honor, allow him to go home. Many of us here today will not boast of not having committed any other offense, including alcohol, and I know some of my friends keep on getting arrested. But sorry, what?
I'm seeking protection. He's looking on my side.
Okay, let me look at him, but they will not be able to even stand with a candle before him. But he has not been arrested for any offense, for any commit, nothing at all. He is clean until this particular incident. Your Honor, because of that, because of what he has done for this society, for being in the army, for working for this country, please, Your Honor, please consider that. We are, I don't know why, but Your Honor, what makes me feel a little bit, let me put it this way because it's my last point. I have a family. I'm trying to just put it in context. And most of us here would have family, we have children. What happens? Anytime you have a child and he gets hurt, you rush to the rescue of the child and you feel the pain for the child as well. The accused person has a parent, the mother, who is now 80 years old, is it? 80 years old. I'm looking at you, Your Honor, and I'm imagining also as being a parent, these are sentiments that you feel. Today, let me just allow me to step out of the law for a moment, only on sentiments. His mother for 80 years has been there for him, stood for him. Spare her that moment. Why? Because you can take up that burden, not for a parental responsibility, but to spare him, to spare the mother that moment of anguish and pain if he is ever taken into custody. That is what I am saying.
Please proceed. In that day was covered by Mr.
Yes, yes. I think I have finished with that.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be very, very brief, but very fast. That, Your Honor, before you is a celebrated war veteran. In other jurisdictions, war veterans who fought in the army are accorded some special consideration. He rose from a constable to a major, evading bullets and guns and mortar to protect this nation. He is before you harmless, crying for mercy and requesting that that enters into record as he awaits the sentence. Your Honor, two, what will be the consequences of the likely event or unlikely event of him being put behind bars as in custody? One, he's a member of parliament, and definitely within 90 days, an election shall be conducted. Considering the prevailing medical COVID coronavirus conditions, which is a reality to everybody, and the social distancing, you know, we shall be exposing a massive infection in Sirisia constituency, whose campaigns must be done. There is no law in place to allow for virtual voting for a general election. You know, this is a corona time. The courts have taken judicial notice of that. The protocols that have been put in place is to decongest prisons. Already there's policy of sentencing, the judicial policy of sentencing was geared towards that. The coronavirus has made it completely live now. Among the most dangerous people are people like my age and him, not Cliff. He is among the vulnerable group medically. If he goes to prison, the risk becomes twice. He's already exposed to a serious risk by his age now. If he goes to prison, we are now enhancing the risk double. Your Honor, we urge that he should not be condemned to a slow death that Justice Mativo has said in that case. That was slow death. This might be a sure death out of corona, and the long duration will be there. You know, I have just been told that here seated before you is a man who saved the late President Moi in the 1982 coup. That is his contribution. That is his star. A man who, when his time comes for eulogy to be read, it will be said that he saved the head of state from an impending coup in 1982. Your Honor, which year is that? 1982, the famous coup of Pancras Ochuka. Yaberi was not born that time. 1982. Your Honor, of great fundamental issue I want the court to capture is that there is a general feeling that this is a member of parliament with a lot of impunity. They do what they do. May it go on record that the alleged offense was committed not when he was a member of parliament. And nowhere has the prosecution produced evidence that he has been charged under the CDF misappropriation. Therefore, this is a man who respects the law. So that, Your Honor, as you take to put down the sentence, put the sentence in light of the time of the offense, not in the time of today that he's a member of parliament. You know, lastly, The accused person here, the convict now here, has serious medical conditions. The judiciary has been brought aware of these facts. May it not be as in John Gakuo's matter when the judiciary was blamed.
Sorry, was the judiciary blamed?
No, it's not a president for a case to refer. I blame them. You did. You know what I'm saying? It's me. It is me. And Cliff, we really pleaded so hard for the life of a human being to breathe. You know, he's praying to breathe. He has come to you like fluid to allow him to breathe. Kindly don't deny him the right to breathe. I have no father. I hope he'll be allowed to breathe.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is he referring to the incident that we saw on TV? Somebody was being strangulated or something like that?
Yes, that's what I'm referring.
That's what you're referring to.
He's gasping for breath.
The point is met, Mr. America.
Thank you. He's gasping for breath, not to go to custodial sentence.
Let's hear the next counsel. Kindly be brief.
Yes, Your Honor, in the form, the methodology we applied, now we'll go to the third accused so that I will wrap up with the application.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mr. Saide, kindly.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor, if it may please you, on behalf of the third accused, Your Honor, if, as correctly noted by the court in its judgment, the third accused person is a limited liability company, which is a juristic person, not a natural person. Your Honor, in mitigation, I will be very brief for the points to consider. Firstly, is that Your Honor, in your judgment, as you correctly noted, is that a company cannot act on its own. But relies on its directors. Your Honor, I'll come back to that point. And secondly, Your Honor, in your analysis of the evidence that was adduced, found that there was no wrongdoing by the company in tendering for the work that it did. None of the witnesses faulted the award of the tender to the third accused.
One of the men can be informed to wear his mask.
Yes, Your Honor, I was doing so just to make my...
Wearing a mask in court, that would be one reason to reduce. Only wearing it as a beard.
Your Honor, I was doing so to make my voice louder, but I'll raise my voice.
I think because of the social distancing,
yes,
just keep it on.
Most obliged, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would
point to your findings in the judgment that the award of the tender was not faulted by any of the witnesses. Your Honor, in your comments, you also found that the company was entitled to pursue a civil claim for failure to get a letter of credit from National Cereals and Produce Board, which Your Honor correctly pointed out was for a different forum, which is a civil court. Your Honor, it has already been mentioned that there is indeed a pending matter in the Court of Appeal in relation to such a claim. Your Honor, in looking at the sentence, the third accused has been convicted on counts 3, 4, and 5. And under Section 48 of the Anti-Corruption Economic Crimes Act, the law provides for a fine against the accused person. Your Honor, here I would refer briefly to the sentencing policy guideline booklet for the judiciary under clause 11.5, and which point applies to the other accused as well. And the point is that where a fine, the option of a fine is provided, the court must first consider that option before proceeding to impose a custodial sentence. And Your Honor, as pointed out at the beginning, which I come back to that point, the third accused is a juristic person, and therefore what we are looking at is the option of a fine. Your Honor, my learned colleagues have submitted that you look at an uncustodial sentence for the first and second accused, and that you consider for the option of a fine Your Honor, I would support my learned colleagues' submissions on that point. And what I would add for the third accused is that since the third accused is not a natural person, if the court does find the first and second accused and then proceeds to find the third accused, the fine imposed on the third accused will be borne by the first and second accused. Your Honor, which is a point I've already mentioned, in your judgment you noted that company acts through its directors. And therefore, Your Honor, I would plead with you to consider that should you find the accused, that the court finds that that should be sufficient and not to proceed and further fine the third accused, because the same would still be imposed upon the first and second accused. And Your Honor, the last point is that in imposing a fine on the accused, which is what the defense is submitting for, you also be guided on considering 11.6 of the sentencing policy guideline booklet, which provides for payment in installments.
In the section of it?
11.6. to 11.9. And I would urge Your Honor to consider that when the court retires to analyze the submissions and provide the sentence. Your Honor, in view of the constraint of time, I will end my submissions there. And I note that I have only taken 9 minutes. I will therefore ask the court if the remaining time can be allocated to Mr. Ondeki, who is submitting on behalf of the other accused for the summary and the application.
Thank you so much, Mr. Said. Mr. Ondeki?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just how many minutes? 6 minutes?
He has donated, he has enhanced my minutes by 6 minutes, and I'm grateful. Your Honor, I want to...
Mr. Ondeki, you did not have any time.
Okay. I stand guided, Your Honor. But I consulted my learned colleagues, and I told them for order, let us finish, so that when they respond holistically to all the issues we have raised.
That is in order.
Yes.
But do not repeat what you are...
I will not. I will be guided by military precision in terms of the points. Your Honor, I am making an application arising from the issues that have arisen in mitigation. And I'm moving you under the Constitution and under the law, particularly the CPC, Section 216 of the CPC, Your Honor, which is very clear and certain, and it is a procedural law that guides and defines all of us. And it states, Your Honor, the court may, before passing a sentence or making an order against an accused person under Section 215, receive such evidence as it thinks fit in order to inform itself as to the appropriate sentence and order properly to be passed or made. So, Your Honor, we're dealing with appropriate sentence. The legal sentence is in Section 48(1) of ASECA, which says, Your Honor, is a fine not exceeding 1 million or imprisonment for a term. That is the legal sentence. But Your Honor, this court, in their wisdom, the legislature, and God is great, one of them is a legislator, in their wisdom said you can also go to the other law, like Section 216 of the CPC, so that, Your Honor, as provided for in the preamble, and the preamble, Your Honor, the beginning words of the Constitution of Kenya says, acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God, acknowledging of our creation, so that, Your Honor, this Constitution, which binds all of us, invokes God, and Kenya is a Christian country. Your Honor, what is the value we get from that? You go to Ephesians 4 verse 32, forgive one another as Jesus forgives you. That is exactly what we're pleading with you, Your Honor. That now the court process is over. The case has achieved its objective. But now we need to go more just than the law, because the law can be unjust. Justice is not necessarily just, and fairness is not fair. So we're saying we go beyond the law. How do we go beyond the law, Your Honor? We call for witnesses to confirm and verify the history you have been told that these people are old. Then you will make a holistic decision. So, Your Honor, we are not demanding too much. The law allows it. Your Honor, what is the constitutional underpinnings that inform that application? I will take you to Article 21, subclause 3 of the Constitution, which says, Your Honor, the state and all state organs, and the court is a state organ, and all public officers have a duty to address the needs of vulnerable members in society, including women and older members. Your Honor, I submit that the ages that you have been given in the mitigation, these accused persons are older members of our society. So we have a duty, a constitutional duty, at least to honor them and treat them, even when this we honor with Article 19.1, which says human rights are an integral part of our society and they inform the socio-economic framework. Your Honor, now this is where the Constitution comes in and tells you we can punish and we can reward. Your Honor, this case, and this I wish to recommend all the stakeholders, at 4 stakeholders: the court, the EACC, the ODPP, the lawyers, and the accused. Your Honor, this is the only case which has complied with Article 50, Clause 2E of the Constitution. It's the only case of its kind. And that article, Your Honor, says to have the trial begin and conclude without unreasonable delay. Your Honor, this is the only case that has complied with those constitutional provisions. And who contributed to that achievement? All the stakeholders: the court, the accused persons, the lawyers, the ODPP, the investigators. They all participated. They have benefited from this case. Now, Your Honor, it is also time for the accused to benefit from behaving with decorum and facilitating the expeditious conclusion of this adjudication. Your Honor, this case has done its job objectively in terms of fighting the war on corruption, because it has changed the attitude of Kenyans in terms of the approach to the fight against corruption. So it has achieved its objective. Even if we were to jail them for 20 years now, it will not change that. It will not add value. Already, it is a case which is a topical issue, it's in the public domain, and it has fundamentally engineered the war against corruption. So, Your Honor, I want you to take you to the Bible when Paul was going to Damascus. And the Spirit of the Lord appeared to him. Okay, I will go ahead, Your Honor, and proceed. I will leave that, but I will use the example. Your Honor, I'm saying this.
Yes.
I think you are saying we are not in church, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Sawa. It's okay. But I go to church, so I will give examples from the church. You know what I'm saying is this. These people here, we can turn them from Saul to Paul. They can be the best people who can fight corruption. And this is the opportunity. This is an historical moment for this court, Your Honor, to re-engineer the entire mentality and attitude in fighting corruption. Jailing people is not an answer. But finding them guilty is good enough because the court process has been followed. But after they are found guilty, Jesus told people, go sin no more. Your Honor, this court has power to do that. But I'm saying this. Since these issues have arisen during litigation, there is need for this court to ground and verify some of the information that have been given. And how can it do that? The court cannot go to do that. it has to give an order to a probation officer to go and interview these accused persons, so that we ascertain their actual age. We ascertain whether they have the families they have said they have. We ascertain whether this historical background, which is very impressive they have given, is true. And then, Your Honor, we're not asking too much. Nobody will serve any prejudice. If you give them 5 more days, we come before you next week, you remand them back at the Kirereso police station, they come back here, the probation officer gives a report. Then, Your Honor, when you give your final determination, it is also grounded by an independent verification by a state agency, which is a probation officer. So, Your Honor, our application is not demanding too much. Kenya is a democracy, and we value all our institutions. We value the principle of separation of powers. We value the doctrine of legitimate expectation. We value respect for one another. And we are saying, Your Honor, in the context of the values in Article 10, that where this situation presents itself in the facts that have been presented to you by the mitigating lawyers, Your Honor, this is a good case to order for an inquiry within the meaning of Section 216 of the CPC, so that, Your Honor, when you make a finding and a determination, it is a determination that is holistic, complete, and then we will thank God for that, Your Honor. Your Honor, the other thing I want to raise is that this is also a case that raises several constitutional dilemmas, because it's a case that touches on all the arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So, Your Honor, in deciding it and taking into account the exceptional circumstances of their age, Your Honor, this is a case where you can make a point of departure from the normal judicial sentencing. Fourthly, Your Honor, and this issue has been raised, but I will just touch it, the principle of the guard against double jeopardy. Your Honor, I've read the charge sheet. In count 3, count 4, and count 5, the 3 accused persons are charged, and then the particulars are saying being directors of the third accused now, jointly and fraudulently acquired public property. So, Your Honor, we are in this constitutional dilemma where if you punish the first and second accused, by necessary implication, you have also punished the third accused, or vice versa. So, Your Honor, that is something that will require that you need time to interrogate that issue so that you come up with a good final determination. So we are not asking too much, Your Honor, when we are saying they can be remanded in Kirereso police for another 5-6 days so that you make these determinations holistically and come with a final analysis. Finally, Your Honor, from the evidence I've just crossed through the record very quickly, I have realized that there's a company called Nistel Limited. This came out during evidence. It received 113 million. So, Your Honor, which means even when it comes to the letter and spirit, the letter and the spirit of Section 48(1)B, you have to interrogate who received what, because, Your Honor, that will inform you on what to do in terms of who benefited, because a benefit as a penalty and a loss as a penalty. So that those issues have to be unpacked, Your Honor, and come out clearly that if you benefited, there's a penalty for the benefit. And if there was a loss of the company, which company? After it's called Nestle. So you know what I'm saying is this? Nectar. Nectar, yeah, nectar. I will give you the proper whatever, but it is something close to that. Your Honor, what we are saying is this, Your Honor, so that for you to bring the letter and the spirit of Section 48(1)(b), then you have to appreciate that evidential burden of demonstrating what was the quantifiable benefit and what was the quantifiable loss. And that is what informs your sentence when you are assigning a particular sentence to people who are jointly charged. And then how do you separate the jointness so that there's no prejudice, since it formed one continuous transaction? And Your Honor, those are, we're raising weight issues that require some time. And that's why we're beseeching the court that if Your Honor can invoke your powers under Section 216, call for a pre-sentencing evidence or a report, and then Your Honor, you make up a complete decision. Your Honor, I'm also informed, and I believe it's correct, that the Supreme Court, when it was dealing with the petition number 56, consolidated with the petition number 57 of 2016, Francis Karioko Murwatetu and Mwangi versus the ODPP or the Republic, Your Honor, they expressed the fact that mitigation in sentencing is critical. And now the jurisprudence that underpins the criminal justice system following that Supreme Court ruling is that even matters are being brought back to the High Court and lower court for purposes of resentencing, and the mitigation is a factor in that. So Your Honor, what we're saying is this: calling for evidence within the meaning of Section 216 of the CPC is well anchored in the Constitution, it is well anchored in the law, and it's also well anchored in our jurisprudence. I've given you the case that was decided by the Supreme Court, and Your Honor, I think it will be constitute a good practice. Your Honor, finally, we urge the court, Your Honor, to exercise leniency and give Your Honor, we were beseeching the court to give an uncustodial sentence in both after satisfying itself from the evidence. Your Honor, I have only one copy of an authority here which I want to round in terms of those calculations. My learned colleague who is a guru in this area, Mr. Mteti. The citation is Ponivas Okrosi Misera and Sevas Amande Maura, criminal appeal number 5 of 2018. Your Honor, I'm sorry, this is the only copy I have. I will give the court. Yeah? The first year, yes. Let me use them.
You're saying it's criminal appeal number?
Criminal appeal number 5 of 2018. And I will take you particularly to paragraph 98 through to paragraph 103, where the issues are raised have been well articulated by the court. And the sentencing, well classified and clarified. Yes. I will endeavor to give my learned colleague a copy. Your Honor, this one, paragraph 98 through to 103.
You only have one copy.
I will arrange it so that they have copies. This is a court copy.
You have a copy yourself?
Yeah?
You don't have your copy?
No. I will arrange for them to get a copy.
Just let them have a copy in the meantime?
Yeah. Yeah.